I'm Carlos Gutierrez. I'm 66 years old. I survived the worst prison riot in American history, not because I was brave, but because I was a coward. I hid in a ventilation shaft for 28 hours, while my friend was tortured to death 6 feet below me. I listened to every second of it. The smell of burning flesh never leaves you. Let me tell you about the choice I made in the dark, and the ghost of my friend that has lived with me ever since. This morning my neighbor was burning leaves in his yard. That smell. It's the same smell. It brought me right back. It's in my nose right now, telling you this. I survived the worst prison riot in American history not because I was brave, but because I was a coward. I listened to my best friend scream for 6 hours and I did nothing. I hid in a metal pipe while hell happened all around me. I regret that I hid in a ventilation shaft for 28 hours while my friend Pedro was tortured to death 6 feet below me. It cost me my soul. Let me tell you what happened. It started in cell block 4, February 2nd, 1980. 1:40 in the morning. A crash jolted me awake. Then shouting, metal screeching like gates being forced. Running. The lights went out. Pitch black. I was 22 years old. I was serving a 10-year bit for burglary. My cellmate was Pedro. We weren't tough guys. We were just two scared kids from New Mexico trying to keep our heads down. In the dark, I could just see the outline of his face. We sat up in our bunks. We didn't say a word. Our eyes met. We knew. This wasn't a fight. This was the thing everyone whispered about. The gates to our tier groaned open. We heard the crowd coming. We got swept into the hallway with everyone else. That's when I saw it. The first one. They had a snitch from protective custody. They had a blowtorch from the metal shop. They held him down. I saw his face. It didn't melt like in the movies. It bubbled and blackened and stuck to the metal. The scream was a sound I didn't know a man could make. Then the smell hit me. Sweet and rotten, like pork left on a grill too long. That smell is in my nose right now. It's the smell of hell opening its doors. I was horrified. I felt sick. Pedro grabbed my arm. He'd seen a way out. He pointed up. A maintenance grate in the ceiling was loose. He made a step with his hands and boosted me up. I scrambled into this tight, dark ventilation shaft. It was cold. It was dusty. He was right behind me. He grabbed the edge and started pulling himself up. But as he did, a hand shot out from the crowd below. It grabbed his ankle. They yanked him down, hard. He looked up at me. His eyes were wide, just for a second, then he disappeared into the mob. I froze. That was the moment, the choice. I could have jumped down. I could have tried to grab his hand. Maybe we both would have died, but I didn't. I didn't move. I just watched the empty space where he'd been. I heard them asking him, "Where's your friend? Where did he go?" I heard Pedro say, "I don't know." Then I heard the first hit, a thick, solid sound, and I crawled backwards, away from the grate, away from him. I felt shame, a hot, choking shame right then. I found a junction in the shafts, a little metal crossroads, and I curled up there. And then I just listened. For 6 hours, I listened to my friend die. They asked him over and over. He never told them. I heard the blowtorch again. His begging turned to screams. Then the screams turned into these awful, wet animal noises. I put my hands over my ears. I pressed until my head hurt, but I could still hear it. I could still smell it. That sweet, rotten smell coming up through the grate. My mind painted pictures from the sounds, the thuds, the tearing sounds, the cheering. I was agonized. I wanted to die right there. Sometimes I'd crawl to other grates. I'd peek down. I saw shadows dancing in firelight. I saw a man being dragged by his hair. I saw the glint of a hacksaw blade. I saw things I won't describe. Bodies that didn't look like bodies anymore. I saw men who weren't men anymore. They were animals, high on stolen pills, lost to something worse than rage. But you see, I didn't see them. I only saw glimpses. Pedro, I only heard him. For 6 hours. Until there was finally a silence from that spot. A terrible silence. I felt a detached horror, like I was watching a movie of my own life. I was in that shaft for 28 hours. The world outside my metal pipe became crackling fire, then moans, then an eerie, heavy silence. It was worse than the screams. Then a new sound, boots, shouting in clean, sharp voices, the National Guard. I didn't move. I was afraid they'd shoot me. It was over. I waited until I heard them calling for survivors. Then I crawled back to the grate and climbed down. Climbing out of that shaft was like being born into a nightmare. The light hurt my eyes. The air was thick with smoke and that smell. I stepped down into the hallway. It looked like a butcher shop. I had to help identify bodies. I saw Pedro. What was left of him. They'd done things. I won't describe it. But I had to point. I had to say, that's him. That's Pedro. That's when the shaking started. It hasn't really stopped since. They patched me up. They sent me to another prison. I served 31 years total. But I never really left that ventilation shaft. They transferred me to another prison, but I took it with me. The shaking got worse. My hands, my head. The doctors called it a tremor. I knew it was the ghost of Pedro's scream, still vibrating in my bones. I served out my sentence. 31 years total. I got out when I was 53 years old. Half my life, gone. And I came back to Santa Fe a stranger. You'd think being free would be a relief. It wasn't. Outside, there were no bars on the windows, but the walls were still there. In here. The silence in my own apartment was worse than prison noise, because in the silence, that's all I could hear, him, and my own breathing from that shaft. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, sure I could smell that sweet, rotten pork smell. I'd check the stove. Nothing. It was in my head. It's still in my head. I tried to work. I got a job washing dishes, but the steam from the sink, the heat, it would trigger it. I'd see that face bubbling again. I'd drop a plate. They let me go. I tried stocking shelves at night. The shadows in the aisles. I'd see movement. I'd freeze. They let me go, too. My face, the scars on my arms from burns I don't even remember getting. People looked at me like I was a monster. Maybe I was. I felt like one. That's when I started trying to leave. For good. The first time was about a year after I got out. I had a bottle of pills. I sat in my empty apartment, and I took them all. I just wanted the sounds to stop. I wanted to stop seeing his eyes looking up at me from that grate. But my body, it didn't want to die. I woke up in the hospital, stomach pumped, a nurse looking down at me with pity. I was angry. I was so angry I'd failed. The second time I tried with a razor, I was too shaky. I made a mess of it, just more scars. The third time, I tried to hang myself in a closet. The rod broke. I lay on the floor of that closet for hours, laughing and crying. Even death didn't want me. The fourth time, that was the closest. I had a plastic bag and a hose from a vacuum cleaner. I taped it all up. I was ready. But at the last second, I saw Pedro's face, not how he looked at the end. How he looked playing cards that last night. He was laughing. He had a terrible poker face. And I couldn't. It felt like letting them win twice. Once they killed him. Again, they'd kill me. So I stopped trying. But living is its own kind of prison. Every February, it gets worse. The air gets cold and dry like it was that night. The anniversary comes, February 2nd. I don't sleep for days. I just sit in my chair and stare at the wall. I relive every minute. The crash, the dark, the smell, the grate, his eyes. And you know what I think about most? It's not the big things. It's the small choice. That 1 second, after they pulled him down, I was still right there at the opening. I could see down into the crowd. I could have jumped. Maybe I would have landed on someone, caused a distraction. Maybe I could have grabbed a piece of pipe, fought my way to him. Maybe we both would have been killed in 2 minutes. I don't know, but I didn't try. I chose the dark, dusty shaft. I chose to save my own skin for 28 more hours, and I have to live with that choice. I have to live with the knowledge that Pedro, my friend, died over 6 hours protecting me. They asked him where I was for 6 hours, and he never told them. He died with honor. I lived without it. They gave me a life sentence of regret. And I'm serving it every day. The food tastes like ash. Music just sounds like noise. I look at people laughing in a park, and I don't understand how they can do that, how the world just goes on. My world stopped on February 2nd, 1980 at 1:40 in the morning. Everything since has just been waiting. I tried to talk about it once, a few years ago. I went to a group for veterans with, what do they call it? PTSD. I sat in the circle. They talked about firefights and bombs and friends bleeding out. I understood their eyes, the darting around, the shakes. When it was my turn, I opened my mouth. I said, I was in a prison riot, and I tried to say more. But the words, they got stuck in my throat. The smell came back. I started shaking so bad I had to leave. I never went back, so I've carried it alone. This secret, this rotting thing inside me. I thought if I just kept it buried deep enough, it would eventually die. But it doesn't die. It grows. It feeds on the silence. It's why my eyes won't stay still. They're always looking for the threat, for the next hand reaching out of the dark. It's why I speak in these whispers. In prison, you learn to be quiet. You learn not to be noticed. I learned that lesson too well. And now, I'm an old man. I'm 66. The riot was 44 years ago. Pedro would be 66 too. He'd probably have grandchildren, a life. Instead, he's a pile of bones in a prison cemetery, and I'm a pile of regrets in this apartment. That's the trade. That's the bargain I made in that shaft. My life for my honor. And let me tell you, it's a bad bargain. You think you're saving something, but you're just trading one hell for another. And let me tell you, it's a bad bargain. You think you're saving something, but you're just trading one hell for another. The worst part, the part that eats at me in the middle of the night, is that I don't even know what I was saving myself for. For this? For an empty apartment that smells like dust and regret? For hands that shake so bad I can't hold a coffee cup still? For a face in the mirror that's just a collection of scars and haunted eyes? I saved myself for a life I didn't know how to live. I had a dream about him a few years back. It wasn't a nightmare. That's what made it worse. In the dream, it was that last night before the riot. We were playing cards on my bunk. He was cheating. I knew he was, but I let him win. He was laughing. Then he looked at me and his face got serious. Not scared, just serious. He said, "Carlos, it's okay." And I woke up. I woke up and I was crying, sobbing like a child, because in the dream, he forgave me. And that was unbearable, because I don't deserve it. I can't forgive myself, so how could he? That dream made me realize something. I've spent 44 years punishing myself. The suicide attempts, the isolation, the shame, it's all a punishment. I'm serving the sentence I think I deserve. Life, no parole. Because that's what I gave myself in that ventilation shaft. I sentenced myself to life inside my own head. And you know what's funny? In a terrible way, I think part of me is afraid to let the punishment go. Because if I stop punishing myself, then what? Then I'd have to admit that I'm just a man who made a terrible, cowardly choice in a moment of absolute terror. Not a monster, just a flawed, scared human being. And maybe that's even harder to live with, because monsters deserve their punishment. Scared men just deserve pity, and I hate pity. I saw a therapist once, court-ordered, after one of the attempts. She was a nice woman. She kept asking me about survivor's guilt. She said it was normal. She said I needed to separate what happened to Pedro from what I did. She said, "You didn't kill him, Carlos. Other men did." I just looked at her. She didn't understand. I know I didn't pull the trigger or light the torch, but I abandoned him. I let him fall, and then I hid. I chose to live, and my choice required his death. That's the math of it. That's the equation I can't solve. My life for his honor. And his honor was worth more. Sometimes I try to imagine the other path, the one where I jumped. I play it out in my head. I see myself landing on the guy who had his ankle. I see us both going down in a tangle. Maybe I get a punch in. Maybe I grab Pedro's arm, and then what? There were dozens of them, high on pills, drunk on violence. They would have turned on me in a second. They would have killed us both. Probably quicker. Maybe together. But here's the thing I can't escape. Even in that version, where we both die on that floor in 2 minutes, it's a better ending. Because in that version, I don't have to live with this. In that version, my last act is reaching for my friend, not crawling away from him. My tombstone wouldn't say, coward. It would just say, died. There's a peace in that, a finality I threw away. I threw it away for 28 hours in a metal pipe, for 31 more years in a cage, for 22 years in this apartment, for a lifetime of jumping at shadows and smelling burning flesh in a neighbor's leaf fire. That's the real torture. It never ended. Pedro's lasted 6 hours. Mine has lasted 44 years, and it's worse, because his was done to him. Mine, I do it to myself, every day. I'm the one holding the blowtorch to my own soul. I'm the one asking the questions I can't answer. Why did you hide? Why didn't you jump? I'm my own torturer, and I'm my own victim. Both. At the same time. It broke me. That realization. That I am the prison. The walls, the bars, the guard, the inmate. All of it. I built it the moment I let go of that grate and crawled into the dark. I sat in this chair after that dream, after thinking all this, and I cried. Not the loud sobs, the quiet ones, the ones that just leak out of you because you're too tired to hold them in anymore. I was just so tired. Tired of carrying it. Tired of the smell. Tired of the sounds in my head. Tired of my own shaking hands. And for the first time, the thought that came to me wasn't, I want to die. It was different. It was quieter. It was, I don't want to do this anymore. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't, fully. But it was a crack in the wall, a tiny one. Just enough to let a different kind of light in. Not forgiveness, not yet, maybe never, but a stopping, a ceasing, maybe just the beginning of understanding that the punishment has to end sometime, even if the regret doesn't. That tiny crack in the wall, it's not forgiveness, it's not absolution. I don't think I'll ever get that, but it's something else. It's the beginning of understanding that the punishment has to end, even if the regret doesn't. That I can't change what I did, but I can maybe stop letting it define every single second of what's left. Here's what I learned, sitting in this chair for 44 years. I learned that cowardice isn't the fear. It's the choice the fear makes for you. In that second, when Pedro looked up at me, my fear chose for me. It said, crawl away, be quiet, save yourself. And I listened. I've been listening to that fear ever since. It told me I was a monster. It told me I didn't deserve to live. It told me to hide from the world, just like I hid in that shaft. And I obeyed, for decades. But I was wrong. Not about what I did. That was wrong. That will always be wrong. I was wrong about what it meant. I thought my one act of cowardice defined my entire life, that it made me nothing but a coward. Period. But I'm starting to see. It was an act, a terrible, irreversible act. But it's not the whole story. The whole story includes the man who served his time, who tried to work, who has sat with this unbearable weight every single day. That's not nothing. That's a kind of endurance. A terrible, painful one, but it's something. I thought honor was only in the grand gesture, the heroic death. Pedro had that. He died with honor. But I'm starting to wonder if there's another kind of honor. A slower, quieter one. The honor of carrying the truth. Of not lying to yourself about what you did. Of living with the consequences, even when every part of you wants to run. For 44 years, I haven't run from the memory. I've been trapped in it, but I haven't denied it. Maybe that's the only shred of honor I have left. This. Telling you. Speaking the truth of it into this camera. Even though my voice shakes and my eyes won't stay still. So my advice to you is this. Don't let your fear make the choice. Not in the big moments, and not in the small ones either. Your test probably won't be a prison riot. Thank God. It'll be quieter. It'll be the moment you see someone being bullied, and you think, it's not my problem. It'll be the time you need to tell a hard truth, and you think, it's easier to lie. It'll be when you want to walk away from someone who needs you because staying is too hard. In that moment, hear my voice. Smell that smell of burning leaves I smell right now. Remember Pedro's eyes looking up from that grate, and choose differently. Let your heart make the choice, not your fear. Even if it costs you, especially if it costs you, because the cost of the other choice, it's a lifetime payment. You pay for it every day in a currency of shame and silence. It's a bad bargain, the worst one you'll ever make. You still have time. I'm 66. Maybe I have 10 years left, maybe 20. Maybe this confession is my first real breath of free air since 1980. Your time is now, right now. You have a choice in front of you today. To be kind when it's inconvenient, to be honest when it's scary, to stay when you want to run. Do that. Do the hard, right thing. Not for glory, not for honor. Do it so you can look at yourself in the mirror tomorrow. Do it so you don't end up like me, an old man haunted by a single second from half a lifetime ago. This act of speaking, it's the hardest thing I've done since that night, harder than the suicide attempts, because this is choosing to live with it, out loud. This channel, from what I understand, is for stories like mine, for people who've lived through something and have a lesson buried in the wreckage. If my story, if my regret, means something to you, if it makes you think about your own choices, then do something for me. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications. There are other people here with other hard-earned lessons. We're not experts, we're just survivors. Sometimes that's the only wisdom there is. Leave me a comment down below. Tell me, what's the choice you're facing? What's the hard thing your heart is telling you to do? Just writing it down is a start. It's a way of not hiding. If this resonated with you, if you felt that chill, hit the like button. It lets me know this wasn't just screaming into the void. And share it. Share it with someone who might need to hear that their moment of courage doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be. Maybe you have a story of your own, a lesson you learned the hard way. There's a form in the description below. Tell them your story. Maybe it'll help someone carry their load. God knows we could all use a little help carrying the weight. And if you want to understand this kind of trauma a little more, I can't recommend a book about my specific hell, but I've read things about survival, about guilt. Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. He found a way to live after a different kind of hell. Maybe there's something in there for you too. Links are below. Don't be like me. Don't wait 44 years to stop letting the fear run the show. Start today, with one small, brave thing. The ghost of the thing you didn't do. It's a heavy ghost. Don't invite it in. Choose instead to live with a lighter heart.